Every time, it's the same. They tell us we can't stop these massacres. They tell us we have to stand by and watch tragedy after tragedy unfold in our communities.
Literally no one
They say
does
we
that.
can't stop domestic terrorism without violating the Second Amendment. And that thoughts and prayers are the best we can do. I'm here to say that's a lie. In this country, we do have the power to change things, to reclaim our freedom from fear. Our ability to make a more perfect union is literally written into the Constitution. So today, I'm proposing the 28th Amendment to the United States Constitution to do just that. The 28th Amendment permanently enshrines 4 additions to the laws of our land. It raises the minimum age to purchase a firearm from 18 to 21. Because if you can't buy a beer, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun.
Well, then how about lower the age of drinking?
It mandates universal background checks to prevent truly dangerous people from purchasing a gun that can be used.
That's like literally already a law.
It institutes reasonable waiting periods for all gun purchases.
A right delayed is a right denied. I mean, I could sit here and do all day. Ban assault rifles for civilians, he adds. That's also like unconstitutional. Yep. Welcome back to the program. Dana Loesch here with you. You can listen coast to coast. You can watch the simulcast of the radio program. YouTube, the discussion. Facebook, Channel 347, DirecTV. If Drakkar Noir and Axe had a baby, they'd name it Gavin Newsom. So he wants this 28th Amendment to limit gun rights. I have a proposal for a 29th Amendment. Do you want to know what it is?
What is that?
Shutting him the blank up. That's what it's called. It would be very popular, I think. I'd vote for it. I'll speak for Texas. Yay. And Missouri, too. I got enough family there. Hell, I'm related to pretty much half the bottom of the state. Yay, they say. They want it, too. I got a lot of friends in Florida. I know they're on board. Yeah, I know a lot of people in Illinois. Illinois. Let's just cut Cook County out, right? Let's just cheat them like they cheat the rest of Illinois, okay? Yay, they're in. There's 4 right there. Done. Look at that. We're on our way. It's true. Civics are important. It's unfortunate that he doesn't understand how that works. Well, I mean, actually, it's not unfortunate. It's great because it's never going to get done. So what he's talking about, this is all them gaming the plan. Look, I'm going to tell you something. The whole goal of Democrats on this is they want the House, they want the Senate, they want the White House, and then they want to pack the Supreme Court, and then they want to overturn the Bruen decision, the New York v. Bruen decision. They want to overturn the McDonald decision. They want to overturn the Heller decision. They want to overturn all of this. So that's the whole goal, by the way, too. And the McDonald decision, that was the Otis McDonald v. City of Chicago. I wrote about him in one of my books. He's like a civil rights, he's a natural rights hero, different from civil. Natural rights, you have them by way of birth. Civil rights are given to you by men in a court or in a legislative body. Otis McDonald is a natural rights hero. There should be a statue of him in Chicago. This man fought against the crooked city of Chicago. He would them into a hole in the ground. Elderly black gentleman, because I know that race is important to the left. They want to pretend that he doesn't exist because he's black. I mean, so they still keep up the Klan's ways. Oh, if you think that I am being incendiary, I'm being historically accurate. Sorry you find history incendiary. Otis McDonald just wanted a gun to protect himself because he saw all his neighbors getting robbed in downtown Chicago. Lived there all his life. He wasn't about to leave the home that he had lived in when he got married, moved in when he got married. I mean, this, Otis McDonald's a hero. And he had shotguns, but he thought that, you can't obviously carry it as easily. So he fought and won. McDonald v. City of Chicago. And so that, along with the Heller decision and the Bruen decision, Heller being, a landmark decision, that created this, trifecta, this wall that Democrats have been struggling with. So that's, they desperately would like to control Senate and House. They want to pack the Supreme Court so that they can overturn McDonald's case. They can overturn the Heller case. They can overturn the Bruen case. And that's just the start of it. But the thing is no one's going to, it would be easier for them, I think, legally, just looking at this clinically for a moment, to try to repeal 2A than to come up with, this is a stupid thing. It's actually really stupid. Even if you're on the left, even if you're far lefty, this is dumb for a number of complications, a number of reasons. I mean, first off, two of the things, actually, there's enough court precedent to render two of his claims unconstitutional. The banning on assault weapons, because that's something that Scalia noted in his Heller decision. Commonly owned is something that's been a refrain since the beginning of the recognition of Second Amendment rights, going back to the times of the colonies, when each of the colonies recognized it as well. And in fact, Scalia, and I wrote a piece on this like way back when, Scalia had even noted the difference between something that is commonly and uncommonly owned. And he went back to the days of the framers, and was saying if somebody was carrying around something that was uncommon, like a head axe, it would be a lot harder to argue that commonly owned, that fell under the protection of being commonly owned. So when you're talking about the most popular rifles in the United States of America that are actually responsible for the fewest homicides, they want to go after that because that's the doorway. And they think that that's an easier way to go about it than just a handgun. If they can scare you into thinking that a semi-automatic rifle is the same thing as what soldiers carry in war, which they're not, and even if they were, I wouldn't care, because this country was founded by free people who had quote-unquote weapons of war. So they ignore the handguns, they ignore the black market, they ignore all of that. And so he wants to try to fight that commonly owned. He's going to crash against a rock on that. So that's number one. Number two, the age increase. There are enough judges out there that could drive it all the way, honestly, if they wanted to, kick it up to SCOTUS. But I think that there's enough precedent arguing against that, because I think that that's an unconstitutional to remove. It's a natural right. I'm actually pretty, a natural right is a natural right. A restriction or a regulation on a right ceases, it negates the natural right. It's not a right if you have to ask permission. It's not a right if you have to carry a card. It's not a right if you have to petition your government. And when Rick Scott in Florida, they were the ones who were pushing to increase the ages. He was the governor when they did all of that stuff after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. And they had a Republican legislature, but it was a lot weaker, small c, conservative, right? Not all of them. Just because they got an R by their name doesn't mean they're conservative. Hi, we could talk about Texas legislature all day long. It's like having a California Republican. You know what I mean? You're going to have moderates, or a New York Republican. That was what Florida was dealing with. And they're not all out either, by the way. That's the reason you don't have open carry yet, because they were fighting, and some of the ones in southern Florida weren't flipping. That's the problem. You got to reform the legislature, and they're on their way to doing that. And if you were to have the governor do that in that instance, the legislature would just override it. So that it's strategy. And when Rick Scott, that was nuts that he did that. And there was a Republican that did that, Governor Rick Scott. It's one of the, I've never been a fan of his because of that. So for Newsom to call for this, he's asking for a constitutional convention, which I don't like either. Because you could easily get something worse out of that. Anything that Newsom calls for, I don't want. Right? So this is really, ultimately, it's a stunt. He's doing this as a stunt. But it signals that the Bruen decision was pretty disastrous for them. That was really bad gamesmanship on part of the left. Remember, they were trying to pull that case. So the backup plan is to pack the courts. And in order to do that, they'd have to control the House, and they have to control the Senate. I just don't think that, first off, you would not be able to do this with the way everything is now politically. And, he also talks about the universal background check. Well, that's a registry. That's actually illegal. There's a federal law against that. And there's no way we have background checks. Now, that's a separate issue from whether or not you like them or that you think that that's constitutional. There's separate issues. The fact is that they exist. And it's something that that system, there was a law passed after that. This is in the 90s after the Brady bill, where the federal government's not allowed to keep this kind of data on you. In order to have universal background checks, they would have to. And the universal background check system is also unworkable because everybody would have to have access to it. We have problems with this system now. Imagine, and we have problems with reporting to the system. Sutherland Springs was a problem of reporting it to the system. Charleston, a problem of reporting it to the system. There were 2 mass casualty incidents out in California that were also similar. There's Orlando, the Pulse nightclub shooting, that was a problem of reporting it to the system and tracking. So you have issues right now with the system. And I can't access the background check system. You have to be a FFL to access the background check system. I don't want to be an FFL. The reason I don't want to have the federal firearms license is because I don't want to have to subject myself to unconstitutional searches and seizures by the ATF. And that's something that you absolutely have to do. Now, people could say, well, that's not unconstitutional because that's the agreement when you get the FFL. But I still maintain that when you are asking the government for permission, you are not free. It is an abridgment. So that being said, there's no way in hell, A, that this would happen. B, it's so legally problematic because C, he doesn't know the laws that exist already. That's it. This is one of the dumbest things I've seen, honestly. But this is a stunt for him. And he's like, oh, we can't, every time they tell us we can't start. Who tells you this? No one tells you this. I went on stage in front of thousands of people where people screamed, burn her. And I had solutions in my back pocket ready to talk about it. And nobody wanted to have that conversation. I went on ABC talking with George Stephanopoulos, solutions in my back pocket. Nobody wanted to talk about it. I went on CNN. I went on MSNBC. I went on NBC. I went everywhere that where anybody would have a conversation ready to talk solutions. But I was told that there were no solutions. I was told that no, we're not going to talk solutions. We just need to do something. And that do something is always the same damn thing. Let's punish the innocent. Let's disarm people. Let's criminalize people who have no criminal records at all whatsoever. Let's do everything possible except proper reporting into the system that you worship. Let's do everything possible except undermining restorative justice and actually bringing back stronger penalties. Let's do everything possible except the very things that would actually reduce the violence.